You wanted the best, you got the best. The hottest band in the land, Kiss. Starting off episode 28 of our A to Z 45 RPM vinyl records collection. And we've got Hard Luck Woman here off of the Kiss Rock and Roll Over album. And if you go back to the box 6 videos, there is a separate video of just Kiss 45s there that I had weeded out of all the mixed boxes at that point in time. So I do have another exclusively just Kiss only 45 video on the channel available if you care to watch that. This one's going to be all Kiss too, because I've got more than enough to do a 12-minute video here. B-side being Mr. Speed, which was on Rock and Roll Over as well. Next up, by the way, just to mention it, Hard Luck Woman was Peter Criss vocals, and Mr. Speed was Paul Stanley, for those of you that might be interested in those little details. The next one up is Beth, which I think everyone's aware was a Peter Criss song. It was actually Beck originally because his wife's name was Rebecca. He wrote it for his wife, and his abbreviation for her was Beck, but they changed it to Beth, thankfully, because Beck, I hear you call him, would be pretty weird. The B-side of this is that infamous Detroit Rock City 45 edit at 2 minutes and 57 seconds long. It is chopped all to heck, but it is a funny listen, especially if you know the song well. So, moving on, we've got Shout It Out Loud. Now this is on the alternate Casablanca label, where you've got the guy smoking and a little bit different logo than what's on the previous ones that we were just looking at. But Shout It Out Loud off of Destroyer, and the B-side of that being Sweet Pain. Shout It Out Loud's predominantly Paul, but it does have Paul and Gene both singing on it, and Sweet Pain is a Gene Simmons track, as I'm sure you're mostly aware. And next up, we've got Rocket Ride, which is an Ace Frehley song, or Ace Frehley. Still trying to get it right. Called him Frehley all my childhood, and then find out that it's Frehley. I try really hard to say Frehley. I even just saw a video on YouTube the other day because he's got a new album coming out, and they were interviewing him, and they were talking about how to pronounce his name. And there's 3 different pronunciations that he's used to hearing, but he even says on there that it's Frehley. Frehley. Alright, so the B-side of that is Tomorrow and Tonight, which is also off of Kiss Live 2. If you remember or not, the 4th side, it was a 2-album set, and the 4th side was 5 new studio tracks. So you had 3 sides live and 1 side studio. So, moving on. Well, quite a few of these we've got in the Casablanca sleeves, which is pretty cool. I Was Made for Loving You, baby, off of Dynasty, 1979. And that's definitely a Paul Stanley vocals track. And Hard Times, another Ace Frehley on the B-side. He got a lot of respect after the solo album. It sold so well for him. Never sang a song until Love Gun. Shocked Me was the first Kiss song that he sang vocals on. And next up, we've got Hard Times. This is actually the B-side. I'm aware of that, but I'm being a big Ace Frehley fan here and wanted to show off Hard Times as opposed to I Was Made for Loving You again. Oh my goodness, I just did a double take there. 2 of the same in a row, and I didn't catch it. Shame on me. Alright, sorry about that. And actually moving on now. Sure Knows Something, which is Paul Stanley vocals off of Dynasty. And the B-side to that one was Dirty Livin', which was a Peter Criss contribution to the Dynasty album. And I read recently where Peter Criss claims that he didn't play on any of the tracks on Dynasty at all, that all of his playing got wiped. Who knows? There's been a lot of bad blood in the Kiss world, between Peter especially, yeah, a little bit even with Ace. But I don't know if that's particularly true or not. There was rumors to the effect on the White Album with the Beatles as well, that Ringo Starr claimed that he didn't do most of the drums, that Paul McCartney had went in at night and re-recorded them and stuff. So who knows if there's any truth to any of this. I would assume that someone can tell their own playing over someone else's, but you know, these are just things that we hear. Hard to confirm. Next up, we've got Dark Light, which was Ace Frehley's song off of The Elder. And that was, I believe, the last one he did with them. Creatures of the Night has him on the cover, but he's not really on the album. I think there's one or two tracks that might have some of his work on it. The B-side here being A World Without Heroes, which I think, again, is actually the A-side. A World Without Heroes was predominantly sung by Gene, but I believe that Dark Light is actually the B-side. Alright, so here's one that, if the sticker's to be believed, I paid big money for I Love It Loud by Kiss off of Creatures of the Night. And that price tag probably is what I paid for it, because those come from a specific store, and I've bought quite a bit in there over the years, so that I probably did pay $3 for this one. With Danger on the B-side, 1982. Alright, moving on, we've got Lick It Up, 1983. I remember going down to the mall, to the record shop on release day to check it out, because they were going to have them finally without their makeup. Unmasked was bait and switch on us. They were supposed to be makeup free on Unmasked, and they decided at the last minute, I guess, not to. But by the time we got to Lick It Up, they had finally decided to give it up and take off the makeup. So, but then Ace and Peter were gone, so we only got to see Gene and Paul without the makeup. But you could find Ace and Peter elsewhere without their makeup on at that point. Peter was the last one I think I saw without his makeup, because he didn't get a lot of publicity or do a lot of material leading up to after Kiss. Dance All Over Your Face being the B-side here. And next up, we got one that I really liked a lot, and that's kind of a cool little stamp there. Moose Track Records, New York. And Heaven's on Fire. I really liked that song. I thought that was a really great song off of Animalize. And the B-side on that one is Lonely is the Hunter. Alright, and then here, well, I'm not going to mess up again. I didn't de-sleeve this one, so there's the second copy of Heaven's on Fire. But it looks identical. I do remember looking at that while I was de-sleeving them and making sure that I showed the best copy and that there wasn't any differences, and I didn't see any differences whatsoever. Now here's an interesting one, Hide Your Heart, off of the Hot in the Shade album. It was interesting that Ace Frehley also did a recording of Hide Your Heart on one of his albums around the same time that Kiss put this one out. But what was even more interesting to me was that Molly Hatchet even recorded the song and put it out on their album in the same year that Kiss and Frehley did their versions. So that was kind of strange. But it's kind of cool too. You've got 3 different versions all from the same year, and why they ended up getting released, I believe it was a new song. And if you look at the credits, it was written by Paul Stanley, Desmond Child, and Knight, somebody. So how it ended up being on 3 albums in the same year, I don't know the story behind, but it is interesting that it is. And Molly Hatchet doing it was kind of unique. B-side of that one is Betrayed, off of the same Hot in the Shade album, which is a Gene Simmons vocal track. Now we've got an interesting one here. I actually got the 45 jukebox insert for it. Those are always cool to see, nice to have. Once in a while you get them in mixed boxes, and sometimes you got the disc and sometimes you don't, but it's always cool to get those. This is Forever. off of the Hot in the Shade album as well, which is a really great album. But this is a remix. This is an exclusive 45 RPM version remix of it, different from the album version. I can't tell you what those differences necessarily are. All I can tell you is that if you get this 45 RPM vinyl, it is different from the album version. The B-side of that being The Street Giveth and The Street Taketh Away. Again, from Hot in the Shade, with Gene on the vocals on that one. Forever, of course, with Paul Stanley. Alright, so here we're wrapping it up at the end with the picture sleeve. I do believe that this was a part of the picture sleeves that I did previously, and there were probably some duplicates in this batch that matched the box 6 video that I made and put up on the channel. But no problems covering it again. This is a different copy. The previous one might not have had the price tag there, which isn't necessarily a good thing. And I probably did pay $3 for this one too. Let's put the X in Sex, which was a brand new song for the Smashes, Thrashes, and Hits, Greatest Hits compilation that Kiss put out. And most all of the older tracks on that album, pretty much all of them, were remixed versions. And that applies to this Calling Dr. Love here too. I know of at least 3 specific versions of Calling Dr. Love. The Rock and Roll Over album version, the double platinum version, which was a different edit of it, and this remix here that came out on Smash, Thrashes, and Hits. And that's not even counting the live version that would also be floating around out there. So I hope you enjoyed this review of the hottest band in the land's 45 RPM vinyls, and I hope you come back and join us again for part 29. Have a wonderful day.